listening with the heart is actually one of the most challenging things to do, because more often than not we go into conversations already thinking about what we want to reply, or we go into conversations and we interrupt people, whether we do it consciously or unconsciously. So they say active listening isn't really about technique, it's desire. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Experimental Parent with me, Jasmine. This week I'm talking about the ETLC of communication. So just riding on from what I shared in an earlier episode about feelings and what's the big deal about feelings, I wanted to talk about communication, which is again at the heart of all relationships. I've always been very interested in finding out from whom I thought were very successful parents in raising children well and also having a very healthy, conducive family relationship. What was their secret to success? And while there may not be a single factor that's the main contributor of their success, what I observed of a common point about all of these parents or these families whom I have talked to was that they have very open communication channels and very frequent communication within the family. And I think that sometimes becomes a very challenging part of parenthood as the children grow to an age where they start having a social life outside of the family life, where the family may not be so much in the center of their lives as it used to be when they were young children. And they start to gravitate towards their external social life a lot more. I can imagine it can be quite challenging for parents to, at that stage, still keep communication open and frequent with their children. And at that point in their lives, it's not like you can mandate it. You can just set a rule and say, oh, this is the rule, and everybody will just naturally comply or have no complaints about it and just feel so happy to be around daddy and mommy all the time. My children have not reached that stage, so I cannot speak for how parenting is going to be like then. But I do believe that it starts young, when communication is open and frequent at a young age, and we always create a very conducive environment for our children to come to us to talk about anything and everything. That lays the cornerstone for all kinds of communication that take place even as the children grow out of their childhood and move on to adolescence and their teenage years and eventually adulthood. So I think one very important factor is for us as parents to not ever give the children the impression or make them feel as if there are things that they cannot tell us, that there are things that we do not stand for, and if they ever tell it to us, we will have an explosive reaction, we won't take it well. I think for a lot of teenagers, that's always the reason why they I commonly hear them saying, oh, that's why I don't tell you things, you always act like that, you always blow up over the smallest things. So again, that involves the parents having to put themselves in the shoes of the children and say, if I were that kid at that age and I had these feelings or I have this situation going on and I want to talk to somebody, what kind of person would I want to talk to? Who would I approach and why? Then we got to try to be that kind of person for our kids so that they would feel welcome, they will feel unjudged, they will feel listened to when they're trying to tell us something. So, make it a point to tell their children that, hey, you can tell me anything and everything, even if they've done something wrong, to not have a very adverse reaction to it, like, why do you do that? That immediately shuts the child down and say, oh, okay, you know what? I'm not going to talk to you about that anymore. So it can be quite hard to just keep a poker face or to remain calm even in that stage. But I think it's helpful to just listen and hear the kid out first before talking about what you think about this situation. So I came up with the ETLC to communication. So this serves as a guide for me to make sure I try to meet all these 4 aspects of communication in order for my children to feel they can really communicate with me about anything and everything, and we can build our relationship and foster stronger bonds through a more open and healthy communication channel. So E in ETLC stands for empathize. Empathize requires us to withhold whatever judgment and preconceived assumptions we have of the matter, and instead of jumping into telling them what's right and what's wrong and what we think. We ought to step out of ourselves and step into the lens of our children to see the world from their view and try to understand, and also not just understand, but try to experience what they are experiencing. And that doesn't mean going to the kid and say, I get it. I've been a child before. I've been a teenager before. I know, that is not empathizing, because you are trying to prescribe, you are trying to project what your experience was like on your child. But every person's experience is unique. So it's not right for us to project our version of the story on our children. Another thing when we do that is that we're not giving them the space to say what they want to say. We're not giving them the space to tell their story, and instead we're just immediately cutting them short right there and just saying, okay, I don't need to hear anymore because I get it. I know. It's the same. It's exactly the same as I went through it. Also, we would tend to be going into this by wanting to fix something. We're trying to prescribe something, and that's why we say, okay, I get it. Well, for me, when that happened to me, I did this. But first of all, not necessarily do your children come to you needing a solution. Have you asked them whether they needed a solution to this? Or were they just trying to tell you something so that they wanted to inform you about it, or so that you could be a listening ear, and that is it? And so in the feeling episode that I was talking about, how sometimes, we always just say, don't just stand there, do something. Sometimes the better way is don't do something, just stand there, right? And that involves being empathetic to our children's situation and also listening to them. So the T in ETLC stands for talking, but we have to be careful here. When we say talking, it doesn't mean that you just blabber away and go on and on about your whole life story, which isn't necessarily relevant to the issue at hand, or it's not the right time to share, because that talking actually involves your child or whoever is facing that issue, whoever is the one requiring an avenue to share their emotions about something, that person is the one that should be talking. So when I say T, talking, it actually refers to, in a parent-child situation, if a child comes to a parent about a problem, for example, the one who should be talking is the child. And when we say we are allowing our children to speak, that means letting them speak uninterrupted, right? To not go in there every few seconds and say, oh, okay, well, here's what you need to do. Oh, okay, you know why you're feeling like that? Because, yeah, you know why you didn't listen to me? I told you so. So erase all of that and let the person talk. As parents, it's also necessary for us to talk. And I mean that sometimes we need to be the ones to proactively open the channel when our children just don't feel like it. It doesn't mean pestering them perpetually, like, can you just tell me about your day? I really want to know. Mommy really wants to know about your day. But if you sense, and this goes back to E, empathize. If you sense that your child's having a bad day and they just, Mom, I don't want to talk about it. You respect that, right? And you find a better day when you feel that your child's in the mood to share something, but maybe, it's the whole teenager's ego, or they're just not conversation starters. You as the parent can take the lead and say, oh, that sounds interesting. Tell me more. And when I say tell me more, you will undividedly listen and let the person tell you more. Put aside your phone, put aside whatever book you're reading, put aside all your laptop and whatsoever, and let the child talk. In the talking part of ETLC, it also involves the feelings aspect. So it's a lot about sharing how you feel about something. It's getting your child to share how they feel about something. So it requires you sometimes to prompt a little bit and say, oh, how did that make you feel? Oh, when your friend did that, how did that feel? So get them to name it, right? And in earlier episodes, I always talk about name it to tame it. So when you name the emotions, you're more effective in being able to deal with them. L stands for listening, and that's a big part of the ETLC, because most of the other aspects of this ETLC also requires you to listen. And it's very hard to do sometimes when you feel like you have so much wisdom to share with your children, and you know what you say can help them, and you're so tempted to say it, but yet you have to put that aside first. Listen to the child, listen to what they're really telling you, even the words that are not spoken. Get information, get insights from their body language, from their experiences and try to get them to articulate how they feel to you. So when it comes to active listening, I like to refer back to a very beautiful way to describe active listening, and that is through the Chinese character for listen in traditional Chinese 繁体字听. So if you look at this character, it actually is made up of many single Chinese characters. On the corner here, you have the ear. So the ear, of course, is the basis of listening, right? You need your ears to listen, but you open your ears to listen and not just to hear. You're not just absorbing sound, but not making any meaning out of it, right? So it requires you to listen fully for everything that the person is saying to you. Then within the character, you can see here there is the word for eye. So listening with your eyes means that you are also capturing body language, environmental factors into your art of listening. They say the eyes are the gateway to your soul. So sometimes just from your children's eyes, you can tell what is it that they're feeling that they sometimes may not be comfortable to say out. Also, when you are using your eyes to listen out for the body language, to observe the body language, you also find things, you're finding insights into your children's world without them having to really spell it out. Then at the bottom of the ear character, you have the character for king. So the Wang over here, the king, actually refers to how you should be treating the speaker or whoever is talking to you as the king. Basically, the full focus of the conversation is on this person and what he or she has to say. That means giving your undivided attention and fully focusing on this person rather than yourself. Some people, we go into conversations and we're just thinking about what we're going to say back in retaliation or what we're going to say back in reply, and we feel like we're just talking to this person so that we can say something back. That is putting ourselves as the king and not the person who is talking as the king. So you should give undivided attention, full focus to the speaker. Lastly, you see in this character one heart, 一心. So with one heart and wholeheartedly, you are dedicating to this person. Listening with the heart is actually one of the most challenging things to do, because more often than not, we go into conversations already thinking about what we want to reply, or we go into conversations and we interrupt people, whether we do it consciously or unconsciously. We're not really letting the person the full space and platform to air whatever they want to say. So they say active listening isn't really about technique, it's desire. If you have a desire to want to be in this conversation with this person, to really fully try to understand what that person is telling you by listening, you would dedicate your whole heart into it, you will withhold judgment, and you will exercise empathy while doing so. So that is how we listen fully and actively. Last of all, in ETLC, C stands for consistency. So whether you're having a good day or whether you're having a bad day, I think it's the least we can do for our children to always try to make time and to always be available to them when they need to tell us something. These times will become rarer and rarer as they grow up, where they won't even want to tell us stuff anymore. So whenever they do, we should always open our hearts, our minds, our doors to them to let them tell us. And it's important to be consistent. So we cannot let our own emotions or our mood of the day decide when and where is a good time to have communication with our children. So for example, if I've had a long day of work, I'll just decide that, okay, today is not communication day. I don't really feel like talking to you. I'm going to be very closed up about it. I'm not going to want to hear your inputs about things. Requiring us to be consistent means that we have to make sure that every interaction, every conversation we have uses all four factors, E, T, L, and C. And that consistency also stretches a very long period, all the way from the time they are able to have conversations with us, which is about 2 years old or so, all the way until for as long as we are with them here in this world. So that's a long time to be consistent, but it's necessary, and throughout their changes throughout the different phases of growth, even when we sense that our children don't really want to talk to us anymore, it's important for us as parents to be consistent by having these communication channels always open and not be like, oh, okay, my kids don't really want to talk anymore, so I stop talking. I stop having this family time. I stop having dinner time conversations because they're not interested anyway. It's our onus to be consistent with them because we set the tone for what the family's communication habits and culture is like. So that's how I remind myself that communication is very important and how to always achieve the optimum level of communication by following the ETLC of communication: empathizing, talking, listening, and consistency. Thanks for tuning in to the Experimental Parent. Remember, we are all in this together. So if you have a story, topic suggestion, or feedback you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you. You can DM me on the show's Instagram, The Experimental Parent, or leave a comment here. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like or subscribe so you never miss out on future episodes. Your support means the world to us. So let us know, how was your experiment today?